So she said, I run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out.
Welcome to the Other 99% podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Duck, a coffee loving direct sales enthusiast who's obsessed with a good digital system. Come join me for a realistic look into the world of direct sales. We'll explore inspiring perspectives, learn about unique business tips, and celebrate success stories that often go untold. Because on the other 99%, every seller matters. Hey everyone, it is me, Lisa, and welcome back to another episode of the Other 99%. I'm here today with our co-host Susan, and we got a pretty juicy topic here for you today. We were just having a conversation before we hit record, and I think you guys are going to walk away with a ton of tips and takeaways because let's face it, I know that we've all struggled with this at some point in our journey, whether it be in real life or in our direct sales business. But we're going to talk today about imposter syndrome. All
Mm.
right. So, Susan, why don't you jump in and sort of give the listeners sort of an idea of what we mean by imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I feel like imposter syndrome, that term is kind of new, but it's not. It's actually been around since the late 70s. And it is basically that feeling that you get when you feel like you're a fraud or you feel like people are going to find out I'm not the real deal. And
Hmm.
I have a quote here, Lisa, and I'm going to say it, and I want you to take a wild guess as to who said this. This is a famous person. Actually,
Okay.
well, I say that, but you're in Canada. Maybe you don't know this person.
Well, let's see. Throw it at me.
Okay. Okay, so it's a she. So she said, I run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. And
Nope.
there's no way you're going to guess. So this
Doesn't
is
doesn't ring a bell.
Maya Angelou.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, we know. I know how that is. Like
Okay.
that's a familiar name. I've just never heard that quote before.
Yeah. So civil rights activist, author, um, I think she had like 50 honorary awards, honorary degrees, dozens of awards. I mean, she has just done so much for our country. Um, but she, with all of that recognition and a compliment, she said, I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. So even she had this feeling like, I'm a fraud. I'm not good enough. Who am I to do these things? So if she has felt like that, then nobody is immune to it.
Yeah, that actually
And I
gave me
heard
the goosebumps. So,
yeah. And I heard somewhere too that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some time. And I thought, it's 100%. The other 30% just have not identified it as that.
that's so true. So
Oh my
true.
God.
Yeah, I think, a lot of us, when we're dealing with direct sales, we can, and the imposter syndrome might come out in terms of like a fear of failure. So we don't want to do anything because, we're not good enough. We're not gonna succeed at that.
Yeah.
Or it could be, the other way where it's like, oh my God, I can't do that because what if I do succeed? I don't fit into that class. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that's just not me. Like I could say that in terms of like, I don't know what I would ever do if I was at the top 1% of the company because to me, in my mind, who I am isn't that 1%,
Hmm.
right? So we deal with that imposter syndrome every day, but what's there to say that I can't be that that top 1%, right?
And those people in the top 1%, they have it too.
Oh yeah.
There's someone else that they're comparing themselves to.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about some sort of situations where we've had imposter syndrome in our own business. And you guys are probably gonna find this funny, but I faced this and it took me so long to hit record on this podcast because I had that floating in my head. Like, who really wants to listen to me? What do I have to share? Like, I'm going to put that out there and people are just going to laugh at me. Like, it's like, And then every time we get comments or people talk to us about our podcast, it's like they're singing the praises and they're saying like how much ahas and tips and takeaways they're getting from that. So it's like slowly lowering my imposter syndrome, but I still have it. I still
Hmm.
have it. Like each time I hit like schedule on our episodes, it's like, is that one gonna be a good one? Are people gonna like, right?
For sure. And it's, you put the content out there and I think we're focusing on the people who probably will never listen to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That's who we're picturing when we say, "Who am I to do that?" Because those people will be like, "Who is she to do that?"
Yeah.
But we're not focusing on the people who are really resonating with the content and the
Yeah.
people who are on, the same wavelengths that we are. Those are the people who we're not even thinking of, and those are the people we should be thinking of.
Well, and it's
So
true because let's face it, like if you go out and listen to a majority, and I almost beg to say like almost all of the podcasts out there, they're done by those who claim to be top in their field and they're $1 million earners and they built
mm,
teams of like thousands and it's like I don't have that to say, but I can tell you that I have like 20 years experience in the field. I built a
yeah.
solid business. I know how to take care of my customers. I know how to treat my team. I know how to train people.
Hmm.
And it's like one of those things is like, yeah, but still, who am I? Right?
Hmm.
Who am I? So
Yeah.
it's hard. It's
But
hard. I
you have
mean,
so much to offer. And I think about those people, those top sellers or those, Amy Porterfield, like the top people, and I can't relate to them.
hmm
I am never going to have $1 million business. I don't know that I want $1 million business. They're not relatable. But like, this podcast, we are the day-to-day direct seller who's
hmm
working their business every day. This is our full-time jobs. And a lot of people I think will resonate to that. Like, how can I live my life the way I am now, but have a successful direct sales business too? So you have to find your people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So Susan, what have you experienced? Like, have you experienced the imposter syndrome in your
Oh
life?
yeah. How long is this episode? Let's see. So I have oh gosh, I don't know where to start. So one recent one, I was recently asked to speak at our conference this summer, on fundraising. And I had two really great fundraisers this year. So our CEO called me and asked me if I would be willing to speak. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like honored. Absolutely. I would love to do that. So we talked a little bit. And then I got off the phone and immediately the thoughts come in. And I'm thinking of so and so who had a much bigger fundraiser than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't she being asked to do this? Or so and so who, her whole business is built around fundraising. Why I think she should do it. Like ready to call our owner back and say, "I think you called the wrong person." And that's definitely the imposter syndrome. Like why did she ask me? But I had to like sit back and say, "Okay, she asked me." I didn't go to her and say, "Hey, can I speak at conference?"
Mm-hmm.
She asked me for whatever reason. Maybe my story was more relatable. Maybe I was a fresh face. I don't know, but I just had to really take confidence in knowing that she asked me, and I will do the best that I can to share my experience with everyone. So that was one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I was preparing for this, Lisa and I were talking about this just before the podcast. Um, I was able to identify a time recently, and it lasted for many, many years that I was dealing with imposter syndrome. My husband is a pastor, and when we got married, he was in seminary going to school to be a pastor. And when he became a pastor, all of a sudden, I had this title as pastor's wife. And I still hate, I've been married for 26 years. I still hate being called a pastor's wife because growing up, I had a very healthy church, amazing pastors families. But the pastors' wives that I knew wore long dresses to church. They homeschooled their kids. They
Mm-hmm.
taught Sunday school. They sang in the choir or played the piano. They knew their Bible inside and out. And I'm like, I am none of those things. Like, I do my best, but I am not the typical pastor's wife. And so when people would call me that, I would stop them and I'm like, I don't want to be called a pastor's wife. I'm very proud of my husband and who he is, and I support him and will do all the background stuff. But when you call me pastor's wife, I feel like that puts me on a pedestal where I don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
So it took, I mean, years. I would say it's just the last couple of years where I realized I can be a pastor's wife and I can do it my way. I don't have to fit into the mold of the other pastors' wives before me. But that took like 20 some years. And preparing for this is when it hit me like, that's imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that
So
was huge.
what have you done to help you overcome that?
So I think maybe it comes with age. I don't know. I got married when I was 22. You're a little more, you care a little bit more about what people think when you're in your 20s and even 30s. I'm in my late 40s now. So I think I've just kind of grown into it and have more confidence now. And this is the funny thing. Nobody in 26 years has ever said, like, Susan, that is not what a pastor's wife does. Or, Susan, you are not a very good pastor's wife. It's all in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the terrible thing. These lies, they come from us. Nobody's telling us these things that we can't do it. Lisa, did anyone ever tell you you shouldn't do a podcast? Who's going to listen to it?
No, but in my head, it's
No.
like, yeah, it's all in my head because it's
Yes.
like, well, what are my kids gonna say? Like, they're on Spotify every day. What if my face pops up and they see like how can I do that? It's like I'm their mother. Like, they don't expect me to be on Spotify and,
Right.
and going through all this stuff. And it's like, but that doesn't really matter. It all comes down to, do we need to deliver the message? Do we need to do what we need to do? Because that's what we're called to do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I was playing around with this podcast in my head for probably a good year, year and a half before I hit the record button.
Mm.
That was the hardest thing. The hardest thing I remember. I still remember the day that I launched because I was so excited because I'm like, yes, I got it done. And then I'm like, oh crap, maybe I should have recorded a couple episodes because all I did was I recorded the little like
The
20-second
intro.
intro. And I'm like, yes, I launched it. And then I'm like, oh man, now I actually have to do
Now the
these
work comes.
it's one of those things. But so let's
So do
talk.
you still feel that way now that the podcast has been going on for a year?
Yeah. Yeah,
You still have it.
I still have it. I can admit to it because there's some topics that we talk about and I'm
Yeah,
like, "Oh, do I really like I mean, am I qualified to talk about that or
right.
like, like do I know enough to do that?" And yeah, it's just this really weird thing. It's like, but at the end of it, I'm like, that was really good. And I'm probably not like the average podcaster because I listen to every episode over before it airs
Yeah.
because I do all the editing myself and then once it's edited, I listen to the full podcast. And I usually come away with like this big smile and that feel of accomplishment because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that actually did sound good, even when we do stumble on on a few
I
things.
laugh
Because
when I listen to the replay, just like I do when we're doing it together. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, I know this joke is coming up here.
yeah, and I'm like, but and then the what really gets me, and it helps to lower or make that imposter syndrome sort of fade away, is the comments. The
Yeah.
comments that people leave on the episodes. It's the messages that we get in the inbox. I still remember the one thing that made me probably smile the biggest is when I got onto a call with Robin Garcia. and she's gonna giggle because I know she listens to every podcast. And it was the first time that we were face to face, first time that we were actually working together on the call. We were working through some questions that she had about her Oh My High site. And she goes, okay, I just got to get it out of the way first. She goes, I'm gonna do a little fangirl here, but like, oh my God, I'm actually talking to Lisa Duck. I'm like, oh my God, really? It looks like my face went red, and I'm like, that is crazy. She goes, yeah, I listened to your podcast, and now I'm talking to you face to face, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not
Like
famous,
crazy. Oh, I love that.
right? And it's so funny because I think it was like a few weeks ago, my son had some friends here, and I was doing some editing at my computer while they were watching something. And my oldest just said to them, "Yeah, she's a podcaster." And they're like, "What?" She's like got a pod. Yeah, he goes, "Yeah, she's on Spotify." So there they are looking up Spotify, and so it's like some of our listeners are probably like, 21-year-old men. They're just sort of seeing what Lisa's up to, right?
That's funny. I love that. All right, so I have a question. This came across, I'm reading Do It Scared by Ruth Soukup. Ruth
Yeah,
Soukup.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and she has a fear assessment at the beginning of the book. So I took the fear assessment, and one of the questions, which I thought was very interesting. So here's a choice for you, Lisa. Would you rather do something you've been wanting to do for a long time, do it and fail, or would you rather live with regret never having tried it in the first place?
That is a hard one. That
Yeah.
is a hard one because I think that many of us just end up living with regret because we're
Yeah.
too afraid to do it.
Yeah. And that's
And it
sad.
is, it
And
is.
it's because the thoughts we feed ourselves.
Yeah, because of what's the worst thing that can happen? I
I
mean,
I know nobody's gonna die.
yeah,
Nobody's going to die. That's where I always take it. Like, if you fail, nobody died.
no. I remember putting my first reel out on Facebook and Instagram, and I was just cringing because I'm just like, I don't want to be in front of people. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And it was this silly kitchen hack where you like if you have a cooling rack, you can put the cooling rack over top of a bowl, take a hard-boiled egg and you can mush it through,
I remember
you
that.
know?
Yes.
And I don't even know what it's up to because I've stopped looking, but the last time I looked, I think it was like at 187,000
Oh my
views.
gosh.
And I'm like, people are actually watching this. But then you know what? And this it's really crappy, but you know what feeds that imposter syndrome?
Hmm.
I think it gets fed by the bullies on on social media and the
Hmm.
negative comments because I was surprised. And so this is why I actually walked away from that reel and I don't check on it anymore. I was surprised at the negativity in the comments on a
Hmm.
reel about smashing eggs. Like,
Right.
number one, why don't you have gloves on? But
Ugh.
then you know what got me like what made me smile is the people that came to your defense. It's like,
Mm.
why
Do
should
you
this
wear
lady
gloves in
put
your
gloves?
kitchen?
Like she's
Yeah.
cooking for her own family. Like what are you
Right.
doing? Like why she's not going to put gloves on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then it's like, I'm plus size and then there were people talking in there talking about, "Oh, I bet you could eat all those eggs yourself." And it's like, "Do you really need to say that?" And it's like
Gosh.
so all of that stuff helps to
Yeah.
feed on our fears,
And it's
right?
a shame that one negative comment has the same weight as 200 positive
Yep.
comments. You
Yeah.
hear one negative thing and that's all you focus on, and that's a shame, but that's just the way our brains work.
Yeah. But I think that's why a lot of us we have this imposter syndrome. It's almost like a protection,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's stopping us from getting hurt. It's like, "Oh, we're not good enough to do that. People will make fun of us."
Yeah.
Or
We
we're
don't want to
not
be
good.
vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So another thing I learned about imposter syndrome is that really it only comes out when you're about to make a big move. when you're about to, if you're just sitting around like being comfortable and not doing anything out of the norm, that you're not going to have imposter syndrome because you're just sitting there doing nothing. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're about to do something big, take a risk, make a major change like in your life or your business, that's when the imposter syndrome really hits. So I thought that was interesting. So when you're feeling that, those ideas that you're a fraud, know that you can either choose to push through it and do the big thing,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just continue where you are and regret it, not doing it, and just keep thinking about it.
Well, it's so funny because we were just talking about some stuff before we came on here about
Hmm.
some big moves that you might see us making in the near future. And we were talking about how we could even collaborate some more outside of the podcast on some things. So, yeah, we gotta overcome that imposter syndrome and just
No.
jump to it, Susan. We just gotta get it done. Gotta get
Yep.
it done. Our
Gotta close our
listeners,
ears and just
yep,
do it.
our listeners really want to hear more about what we have planned. So
We do have a lot planned. It's very exciting. All right. Well, how about should we talk about what are some things we can do about imposter syndrome?
yes, yeah.
Yes. So, what's something that we can do?
I mean, I like the one thing that makes me smile and helps me get over it is taking in all of the positives and leaving beside the negatives. So write a list. I've actually started reaching out to people asking for recommendations and reviews if
Mm-hmm.
they've worked with me. And the one thing that I absolutely love is that it puts a smile on my face every time I read them.
Mm,
So it helps me overcome that, that fear of feeling like I don't know what I'm doing.
hmm.
Because if this many people are getting positive results from, working with me, then I must be doing something right. So
Yeah.
I've actually created a board and it's called testimonies, and I have their reviews and their recommendations and then their smiling face right beside it. So
Oh, I
every time
love
I open it
that.
up, it's like I could see it. So I think I'm just going to start feeding everybody's reviews in there just so that I have a place to go. But then
Yeah.
I'm also sharing those things on my website. So it's like it's helping me build that confidence, I guess, to
Yeah.
overcome the imposter syndrome. So even if you don't create a board, like maybe even create a list of some like positives. Like
Hmm.
why, if we relate this back to direct sales, why are you good at customer service?
Hmm.
Why are you good at team building? Why do your customers love buying lemongrass spa from you, right?
Hmm.
All of those things can help you easily overcome because I think that even the average direct seller faces imposter syndrome on a daily
Hmm.
basis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So those good reminders of the positives. I love that. Something else that is super helpful for me that we're doing right now is to talk about it because when you keep it silent, it grows. And when you're not sharing it with other people and they're saying, oh my gosh, I feel the same way, there's something so comforting is that right? There's something so
Comforting?
comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that sound like? It makes you feel good to know that other people are in the same boat because it can be very isolating and very lonely if you keep it to yourself and you think, I'm the only one who's dealing with this. There must be something wrong with me. Just know that there is nothing wrong with me. You are growing. And it's actually a good thing to have those feelings. So, talking about it, and remember that the statistic says 70% of the people experience it, but I
Hmm.
think it's 100%.
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely not alone in that.
No.
Now, have you ever been one to do like things like affirmations to try and help you through? Because that's, I mean, I've tried. I just I can't talk to myself in a mirror.
I know, I don't know about affirmations, but I have done like if the thought that's coming in is saying you're not good enough, turning it around, you are good enough.
Mm-hmm.
If the thought coming in is saying no one's going to listen to your podcast, it should be thousands of people are going to want to hear the message that you're giving on your podcast.
Yeah.
So that has helped me. You take the negative and turn it around and focus on that. That has helped.
Yeah. And one thing that I find is that, sometimes you just got to do it. I remember on a podcast I was a guest on, and I think it was one of Sammy's podcast, and she asked me for my favorite quote, and I'm like, just do it. Like, I'll quote Nike because it's like you really do. Like, even when I go back to the podcast, I just had to do it. You know,
Yeah,
if it
yeah,
failed, it failed, and that goes to your question. It's
mhm,
like, I did it just to see what happened.
yeah,
I'm like, I'm completely surprised that like we're on going into year two, and
yeah,
it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
yeah,
And we haven't missed a week yet, which is like, wow. Um, but yeah, just doing it, build that confidence just to get it done,
yeah.
right?
So Sean Cannell, he's a YouTuber I've been watching. He has something called the 7C framework, and there it's amazing to listen to it. But the very first C is courage.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have courage, you're never going to hit the record button. You're never going to send the email. You're never going to reach out to that customer or whatever it is. Everything in our business and in our lives starts with the courage to do it.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And then the last thing I wanted to say about, helping you overcome the imposter syndrome probably was the biggest move that I made in my direct sales career. And that was finding my people.
Mhm.
Before 2020, I was stuck in the groove of, oh, I can only learn, I can only work with people who are within my company.
Mm,
And when I actually turned that page and found the Modern Direct Seller Academy and found the group of people that I became like really close friends with, even though we've never met in person, it's like, but we work so well together. And like you guys have helped me come out of my shell.
mm,
I'm not the same person I was when I first met you guys, right? So
yeah.
finding your people can help you overcome the imposter syndrome too.
Yeah. And offer encouragement to each other too. Because you said, you have that board of all of those encouraging, positive messages people have given to you. So make sure that, you know, I will make sure that I am encouraging others too, because those positive words and encouragement, I mean, they mean the world.
Yeah.
So be an encourager in your tribe with your people.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have another quote. Maybe this will help someone. Brené Brown,
Yeah.
super famous author. She says, we can have courage or we can have comfort, but we cannot have both.
Hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then another reason imposter syndrome creeps up, I love this idea too. It says, we compare our beginning to someone else's polished highlight reel.
Yes. That's so true. That's so
Yeah,
true.
we are just at the beginning.
And I think social media is so bad for that. I
Yeah.
mean, social media, I think, puts a lot of that negative thoughts in our head, right? That breed that imposter syndrome because we're like, oh, who am I to sell that? Because why is somebody going to buy that from me? Because I don't fit into what you would think of a healthy person selling healthy food, right? Like, why would they buy
Mhm.
it from me? Or, somebody who might not have the perfect skin. Why are they going
Mhm.
to buy skincare from me? My skin doesn't
Mhm.
look, flawless. And, well, maybe you have conditions that,
Yeah. I
like,
have wrinkles. How
you
can I sell
can't.
wrinkle
Yeah.
cream?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
We gotta stop. I love that. Stop watching their polished highlight reels.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
Yep.
good.
And then Susan Jeffers, she has a book and it's called Feel the Fear, Do It Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fear is just a part of our lives, feeling like we don't have enough or we're not ready, we don't know enough. It's just a part of human nature. So you just have to push it aside and do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to invite, the listeners to either drop a comment in underneath the wherever you're listening to the podcast, whether it's like YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and let us know, how they overcome imposter syndrome or if they've ever had it or and if you don't want to put it out publicly, we understand. You're more than welcome to reach out to Susan or I via like DMs or PMs, wherever you want to reach us. But our contact information is in the show notes. So you can always connect. We would love to hear from you. I mean, that would put a huge smile on our faces.
I know.
So,
I think that would be so empowering to hear all the people that suffer from imposter syndrome. I
yeah.
think that would be very empowering for everybody to see that you're not alone.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm just going to put it out there because if there's anyone listening who has had, a real, had to deal with a real battle of like imposter syndrome in their direct sales business and they've overcome it, we would love to talk to you and see what steps you took to overcome it because you know what? You're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone because there's someone out there right now dealing with that same fear, that same imposter syndrome that's like, I'm not good enough to do this,
hmm And it can
right?
hold you back from doing amazing things, and we don't want that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Susan, I think we've come to the end of another episode, and we just want to thank everybody so much for taking the time to join us and listen to us ramble. And I hope you get the giggles that we do doing the podcast. But we really enjoy coming to you each week. And thanks again so much for joining us on another episode of The Other 99%. And we'll see you again next week. Take care. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would take a minute to rate and then review the podcast, I would absolutely love it. And if you know someone who really needs to hear this podcast, please feel free to share it with them. More listeners, the better. And if you know someone who would like to be a guest on the podcast or you yourself would like to be a guest, be sure to check the link in the show notes or visit lisaduck.com and click Be a Guest. We'll talk to you soon.